Okay, so I am here today with Deborah, who I have been stalking a little bit on LinkedIn, which is why I reached out and asked if she'd be kind enough to do an interview with me today. So Deborah's got an impossible surname to pronounce, so I'm going to hand over to Deborah to just briefly introduce herself, and then I've got some questions, and we're going to have a bit of a chat, and then we'll just take it from there. So, Deborah, over to you.
Hi, thanks so much for having me today. So my name is Debora Prossomariti. I'm Italian. I know I'm aware that my surname is really, really hard to pronounce, even for Italian people, so don't worry. I'm a LinkedIn content creator with a community of over 30K followers, as well as personal branding and marketing consultant.
Awesome. Okay, and where are you based at the moment? Are you in Italy or are you in the UK now?
No, at the moment I'm in Spain.
Oh, right. Okay.
I move again.
Because right, just to give a bit more context. So a few years ago, I'd never seen you anywhere on LinkedIn or anything. And then all of a sudden there's this Deborah in my feed and Deborah in my feed and Deborah in my feed. It's like, who is this lady? She just keeps showing up everywhere. And then your follower count was like growing rapidly. And you were putting some really good content out there. So, I was paying attention to what you're writing and everything else. So just tell us a little bit more about your journey. What got you here? You've mentioned that you speak 5 different languages. You've lived all over the world. Tell us a little bit about your journey, and then I'll have some questions for you.
When we did connect, I was actually living in the UK, so you remember right.
Okay, good. It's a good start.
So my journey is quite articulated. So maybe we can focus a bit more on the LinkedIn side to get a bit of
More context.
some insight, some context. So basically, I started on LinkedIn as most people do for job search. So I was a graduate, a postgraduate student, and I wanted to start getting some experience. So I started to explore the platform itself. I wasn't considering myself a content creator at all at the time. I was just connecting, networking with people. I wanted to be in corporate and become a leader. And I started to learn more about the platform. And eventually I started to share my stories as well. And I did realize the potential at that time after a few weeks of starting out. So initially, I was starting by sharing the very generic content, like tips and tricks about advertising, about organizational skills, because I wanted to get attention of recruiters. But then my content switched because I started to get actually in touch with other creators. And I got in touch with some personalities that were really influential, and they suggested me to actually share my stories and share the journey that I was following. So after a few weeks of starting, I decided to switch the kind of content that I was sharing. So I moved from sharing generic content, sharing Googleable content, to actually share my stories and share my learnings along the way. And that shift changed everything. And I really started to realize this potential, and people started to see me in a different way. So in that moment, I realized that it was meant for more. I realized that I could do more with that, the storytelling and the messages that I was sharing. But at the time, I was still focusing on the job search, on the part of the platform. So when I found my job, I decided to focus on that, and my storytelling was more to make friends. I didn't really have real purpose, because I reached my objective of finding a new job. So when it was 2021, so basically I posted for around 2 months, more or less, and I was already getting a lot of engagement, a lot of traction, without selfies, without pictures, just text only. But I found a job that I like. I was about to move to another country, and my presence in the platform wasn't really had no real clarity, it had no real purpose. So I completely lost my why on why I was doing what I was doing. So I enjoy sharing my stories, but what happened is that in August, there was an algorithm shift and an update. So I went from having a post with 80K views to the following one with 3K, 5K views.
I remember it
and
well.
very little engagement.
Yeah.
And that made me realize that I was too focused on vanity metrics. So once my main purpose on the platform was gone, because I already got the job, I was there only to boost my engagement, for my dopamine hits, and it was really affecting my mental health in a very, very negative way. And this was something that I really didn't need at the time because I was changing all my life. So I decided to take a step back and stop sharing it all. So initially it was a classical digital detox. So it was supposed to last only 1 month, but then 1 month became 3 months, it became more than 1 year.
Yeah.
I wanted to restart sharing. So at some point in winter, I felt the need to reshare again, but the content that I was I saw my feed was really, really self-centered, plenty of success stories, and I couldn't really understand what was going on because I could see that there was a lot of content with very generic takeaways. I couldn't understand why this kind of content could get so great engagement. So this stopped me from actually sharing my messages because I was like, what's even the point? Is this kind of content is getting great engagement? Months later, I would have discovered that a lot of content was actually boosted artificially. So it was a real engagement, and what was preventing me from restarting was actually fake, was actually something that wasn't even real. Anyway, I restarted this time properly in July 2022. So I re-entered the platform. I kept networking with people because I enjoyed the vibes of the platform. So I kept supporting others during those months. So people still knew me, but I wasn't posting for myself. So in July 2022, I had more time for myself, and I started to seriously consider the option of starting working for myself. So I realized that in some cases, the outcomes and the results that I was bringing to the clients were very high in comparison to what I was getting for myself. So I realized that I had the potential to actually take the leap for myself. So I decided to start over, but this time intentionally. The main trigger was another episode in which basically I got offered a full-time job in Paris this time it was a very high salary, and it was a senior position, so management position. I was in charge of great responsibilities, and it was related to marketing and sales, so it was something that I loved. But it happened that after 6 interviews and approximately 2-3 months of during the process, the head of HR realized who I was, and they explicitly told me that because of my age and gender, my offer would have been discounted by 20K.
Wow.
Yes. So
they actually said your age and gender.
They said explicitly, a young woman cannot earn so much. It would make someone internally uncomfortable.
Wow.
And I even have the hiring manager fighting for me because he was the one hiring me, and he didn't expect that. So he was actually fighting for me. It was he wanted to bring me in at the right salary, but there was some politics and some internal concerns, and I declined the offers, of course, and I chose another one. But that moment was something that made me realize that I had to share that story, because someone else would have taken the offer anyway. In the past, probably I would have taken it because it was high responsibility. Maybe in 6 months' time, you will get the promotion if you are good enough, you know? And I knew that that was very important for me. And I knew someone else needed that message and needed to say no to the wrong opportunities. So I drafted the story and I procrastinated for 2 weeks. Like I overthought it for 2 weeks before hitting post. I started to think about, okay, maybe I am just a drama queen. Maybe I'm overthinking all the story. Maybe it's not that bad, you know? But it was too strong. No, this is really bad. 20K is a lot of money and I don't deserve it. Nobody deserves it. So I posted, and the post, even if I wasn't sharing for more than 1 year, the post went viral and reached millions of people. So I got almost 1 million views in less than 1 week.
Wow.
And even people that were actually influential, and I even got new job opportunities from that post, and hundreds or even thousands of messages from other young women who told me, I wish I did this. Or I got this, like I had a similar scenario and I'm going to act differently. So from that moment, I realized that like my purpose was another one. So yes, of course, LinkedIn can be a great tool in terms of networking, in terms of job search. Yes, but it can be much more. If you like actually speak up and you share your values, you can actually influence people in a different way. So that was what made me start, even like beyond business.
Yeah, sure. What a great. I had no idea about any of that. I don't think I saw that particular post that you've just mentioned. I think you must have been like coming across my feed at a different time. But one of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you was because you're obviously you're young, and I say that with respect, and you're clearly very successful. You've got a good following, clearly very intelligent as well. And I think there's a lot of, and this is something that I'm very passionate about in the work that I do, because we're all kind of conditioned to think we have to go into the workplace, we have to climb the corporate ladder, and we've kind of made it if we get a big high salary job or whatever. And then there's people out there. So, I mean, I don't consider myself old, but you're younger than me. And there's people out there that are proving that you don't need to follow that path, even if you have that path given to you or an opportunity to actually doing your own thing and doing what you're good at and recognizing what it is that you're good at. And I think what caught my eye about your profile was that every time something came across my feed, you're in a different country. I was like, this girl does never stop traveling. And I was like green with envy, sat in my office going, it's cold and it's raining, and she's on some boat in the middle of a lake in the middle of somewhere. And I was like, okay, she's living the dream in many ways. So what would be your thoughts on that? If somebody were to be talking to you about being young and following the corporate ladder or choosing to do your own thing, what would you say that the main things that you're getting out of it, and what advice would you give to somebody like that?
So knowing what, like doing a lot of research. So for example, in the first place, I was chasing the wrong things. So I grew up with the idea that I wasn't even considered working for myself in the first place. So for me, it was either starting being in a startup or having an international career. I even considered that I could start my own business, you know. And I had this idea that I had to be in a corporate, I had to be in the tech company because it has I was chasing this fancy job title, and I even got the job title that I wanted because I wanted to be account manager in a big tech, and I managed to get there. But when I actually experienced that, I realized that it wasn't what I wanted to do. So it wasn't fully aligned with my values and the kind of life that I wanted to have. So designing your life in the first place, like the kind of life that you want to have in the first place, I think it's crucial because it goes beyond the salary, beyond even the location. Because of course, I had interviews at Google, at Microsoft, especially when I was in Dublin. But I didn't want to live in Dublin, for example. So even if you have like the option, the opportunity to get a great role, but you are not living the kind of life that you want to live. So for me, traveling means a lot. I love traveling, and I love even like, I also love like choosing my own clients, and like get the flexibility on deciding when I want to do what. So having that kind of freedom, for me, it was very, very important. So it goes beyond the salary and the job title.
Yeah, absolutely. Freedom is an interesting one, because it's a value, as you've mentioned today. And it was actually the thing that got me out of the corporate space. I mean, it took me 3 years to actually grow the guts to do it and make the leap. But it was the freedom part where I started feeling that my body was like itching from the inside, where I was in the same car every day, on the same roads, in the same traffic, with the same angry people at the same desk, doing the same job with the same colleagues. You know, don't get me wrong, my colleagues were lovely, but it was like this Groundhog Day every single day. And it was actually when I realized how important freedom was to me, that I knew that I needed to become self-employed. And similar to yourself, I was like, it never even crossed my mind that I could actually possibly work for myself. Had an idea what I could do and what I'd like to do, becoming a coach. And then 3 years later, I knew that I just needed to take that leap. So I really resonate with what you've just said. But interestingly, you're basically, what I'm hearing from you is that decide what the lifestyle looks like first, and then build the career around it. So that fits into the lifestyle, not the lifestyle fits into the career, basically. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, but still you don't you don't know it until you experience it. So sometimes it's fine to make mistakes, because I didn't know that I wanted this until I knew. So it's fine. The problem with most people is that they stick to the status quo because they don't want to risk more. So if you made a mistake, but then you this is actually, there are a lot of biases in place. So there is the consistency bias, commitment bias. So there are a lot of biases playing against us. So if we make a mistake, but then we find excuses not to change, not to actually go against the status quo, we get stuck. So the moment when we realize that it's not what we want to, is not the place we want to be, and we actually have clarity and we are not happy, it's the moment in which we need to realign, we need to reset and realign and add a new plan. So there is always the option to choose and to not to get stuck in a life that you don't want to have.
Yeah, and most people do, and then they just carry on that life, and
yes,
they get to the deathbed and they lie there in a pile of regret. So interestingly, you mentioned before, as you were talking, you said you needed to understand your why. What is your why?
So for me, it's I have different whys. So because also, of course, right now I build a business from LinkedIn, so I also need to act accordingly. I cannot just share my truths. I also need to share content that converts and that reaches the right people. So it's a bit hard to find a trade-off. But for me, it's inspire people to take action, to make changes, and actually live their life that they want to live without not without fear, but doing it anyway.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And what would you say is the hardest lesson that you've had to overcome on the journey that you've been doing? Because you've had this almost fallen into the work that you're doing from what you're describing, where you started off going, I'm going to get this big job, and you got offered a big job, and then you had some discrimination on your feedback, and then you decided not to take it. You want to travel, so you've got all these ambitions, but sure, I know from being a business owner myself, it's never just a smooth, lovely ride and everything goes hunky-dory and there's no problems or anything. And I've got some good old bumpy stories to share myself. But what do you think are the biggest lessons and the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome to get to where you are at the moment and what you're doing at the moment?
So one of the saddest truths, I think, is that nobody really cares, not as much as you do. So people can give you advice, they, especially your parents, your family, they want to keep you safe. But sometimes safe is not the right direction.
Yeah, carry on. I relate
So,
to that.
so yes, being safe is not always like, it's always good to take risks, but make sure that they are calculated.
Mm-hmm.
So most people, they think there is like this dilemma between like stay safe or taking risks. But in fact, like you can take risks, but you can actually make it make them in a safe way. So take calculated risks, for example, like getting a safe net. So if you have savings at least for 3-6 months, so it's not the same as just taking the leap without any saving and without anything. So there's this trade-off. It's important to just not to just jump in any opportunity, but actually like prepared and seek support, because there are people doing it first and they have first-hand experience. So for example, when I started my own business, so my story is quite interesting because I started the business, like I started getting clients before having the business. So I didn't have any offer. I started getting clients inbound before having any offer on LinkedIn, which was something that made me realize I was really good at like inbound marketing, and was like, okay, I need to take it, take advantage of this. But the fact is that like when I got inbound opportunities and I wasn't working for myself, so I was actually freezing because I didn't know how to handle that lead. I didn't know how to, like, what to do with invoice, with contracts, the rates that I was charging. But I had a network, so I had people around me that was doing similar jobs. So I had people who could support me, and they could give me some advice and about what to do. So I didn't start charging 10 euros, but when I started, actually, when I started, I was actually charging 200 pounds when I start out. I wasn't start out, obviously, because I was already super experienced in marketing and sales, but I was starting out for my own as a side hustle.
Yeah.
But still, I know that a lot of people, when they start, like when they start for themselves, they undercharge by a lot because they don't have access to information. They don't do enough research, I think, and they don't have the support, like the network and the people around them helping them.
Yeah, sure. I understand that, because I remember when I first set mine up, even just all the contracts, understanding how to send an invoice out, what does an invoice even look like, what software do we need to like have a Zoom. I hadn't even heard of Zoom when I first started. Well, actually, that's not strictly true. I had heard of it, but I hadn't really used it, and I had no understanding of like how to do a recording on it, because I'd always just joined other people's after clicking on a link. So there's probably more understanding that you have to actually make something be sustainable when it comes to running a business that people massively underestimate. And I also strongly relate to, I mean, to be fair, most of my family have been really supportive, but I mean, the older the generation, the more you're likely to get, don't do that, it's too risky, people fail, and you get a secure job. And I don't even know what a secure job is anymore. So many people get made redundant, and yet I don't see many businesses that I see around failing in the same way as people get let go because the business just has a change of heart about something, a new direction in a business or something like that. So yeah, I totally support that. So in terms of LinkedIn, obviously this is your baby. In terms of your experience, it's definitely changed, hasn't it? I remember when the algorithms changed, like you said, and you'd be hitting like 80,000 views in one video or post or whatever, and then suddenly down to 3, and it all changed. But it is definitely going more onto kind of the theme of self-branding and branding yourself as the business, and storytelling and inspiring people through story, rather than here's like 3 tips to be slimmer or something, like whatever it is that people do. So what's your thought on what's happening now on LinkedIn and how things are going and where it's going to?
So I think LinkedIn also relies on how the corporate, the workplace is changing. Because of course it's not the algorithm, but it's people. So there have been some changes in terms of algorithm, which actually went the opposite direction at the beginning of the year. So January January, April, May, in which there was much more educational content with a lot of courses. But because LinkedIn on purpose, they realized that there was too much personal content, and they tried to stick to professional corporate. But what I'm realizing right now is that people have changed. So professional, like how we see professionalism, has changed after the pandemic. So even if the algorithm has changed and it actually favored the tips and tricks, people weren't. So storytelling still had a big effect, and people they are actually changing their mindset because of the layoffs, because of how the companies treated people during the pandemic. I heard horror stories about companies obliging people to go back to the office, even if there weren't really the conditions to do that. And all the landscape has changed, and people are now realizing that you are safer if you rely on yourself, because companies they just of course they can be great employers, but their first need is keeping the company alive. So there is always this trade-off that you have to make. So if you decide to work for a company, you always need to be aware of the fact that their first interest is the company, is not you. So this whole concept of a company being a family has fallen, and everyone knows it now. That's why even if the algorithm can change, can bring more people to some formats or another, it doesn't change the fact that people now are different, and they actually want real stories. They don't want the fake success stories anymore. So they will not support content that they will not content that is not for them. So I think it's more changing in the also corporate landscape, but even like people realizing what they actually can do. Because if you can work for yourself and in a few hours, bringing the value, bringing results for your clients, and you can get an income in a few hours to get the same salary that you had in 1 month, then of course you make the switch. But it's more, especially for women. So what I noticed is that we tend to negotiate less. So we tend to be more scared of negotiating offers, accept less than we could. But once we realize that we can actually believe in ourselves, we can actually make a difference and get a career that we want to achieve, then it's much easier to bet on yourself rather than waiting for a company to promote you and to actually see your values. So I think there is actually an overall change in the environment. It's not only LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And I think with the stories as well, I mean, a lot of people still have the very old fashioned way of looking at LinkedIn when they think, oh, it's just about businesses and it's just job hunters, or it's just, it's like employee of the month. That's gone. I mean, that just dies. I mean, occasionally you do see the odd post with it, but there's no engagement with it. There's nobody congratulating it. And what we're realizing more and more is that it's human being connecting to human being, and people relate to it because, if you look at we've got different stories, but if somebody might look at me and think, oh, you've had all these difficulties in the past, whatever they may be, and you're changing it now, and that inspires somebody that's maybe on the same path I was, and you will attract and inspire people as your clients who've maybe stumbled into something, they don't want to do it, they're not happy in the job or what they're doing, and they find what you're doing inspiring. And it's the storytelling that they're connecting with, which is the person behind it, as opposed to, look how much revenue we turned over as Microsoft this year. Nobody cares, nobody gives a shit. So it's so much better, in my opinion, it's so much better.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so much more inspiring, it's so much more engaging, it's so much more interesting, and you get to know the person behind. Particularly if you run your own business, you get to know the person behind it, not just the company brand of Peugeot or Google or whatever. But that does come with its own caveat, because I've had this experience, and I know you have as well, because you've shared it on the posts that I've seen. But if you're going to be making a living and you're going to be posting socially on social media, that comes with the caveat that you're going to get some trolling, and you're going to get people that are mean, and you're going to get people that are jealous, and you're going to get people that just can't stand your success because you're doing what they want to be doing, etc. What type of trolling have you experienced, and how have you managed it in the past?
It's tough. I know that it comes with a compromise. So if you want to get exposure and if you want to make a living by being like having a good online presence, it comes with a cost. So you need to accept that you, like, if I have almost more or less 1 million views per month.
Wow.
I am aware of the fact that not everyone will like me. Like proportionally, like even 1%, it's a lot though. So it's something that I've been dealing every day, and some days is really, really hard, because especially when you are not maybe confident, so you are not super, like your self-esteem is not very high, getting trolls comments or comments that actually match your self-limiting beliefs can be really, really hard to handle. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for you to get better and to understand what your triggers are. So in my case was like I've been always been discriminated a little for my age, for being a woman. So came across too strong or too bossy. So this was something that I've been like growing up with. So it was a self-belief that I am myself, that I couldn't negotiate for more, then I would have always been struggling with this. And I get trolls still telling me, well, you are just there because of your looks. Or you're just doing that because someone helped you, you had a rich boyfriend or your family. So when this happened, what I usually do is go back to facts and data. So I have a track stories of success. I know, like, I have proven systems in place. I have happy clients. So these are facts. This is not about the story that I'm telling myself. So I try to separate the stories that I tell myself from the actual facts and what I did. This helps a lot because it helps you put yourself into perspective. Yeah,
absolutely. And I relate to that. I've had so many people say things like, it's just because the way you look that you get male, like, so most of my clients are males now. That I think it's because of the way that I come across, because I'm quite punchy, I'm very direct, you know, and I have a very feminine streak as well. But for whatever reason, guys I think they feel it's easier to talk to a woman. But at the same time, I'm not going to mince my words and I'm straight to the point. And guys, in my experience, resonate with that. But I do have female clients too. But I've had people say, it's just because of the way you look, and that's why clients are enrolling with you. And I was like, guys aren't going to pay me thousands of pounds to work with me just because of the way I look. Like, that completely invalidates and the things that they want.
I had this conversation.
You actually think these guys are nuts, so they're going to pay thousands of pounds to sit on a Zoom call with me? I mean, I give these guys some credit, you know, like they're genuinely trying to better themselves, and I applaud that. So yeah, so it's ridiculous, but I have seen some guys give you some grief about the way you look and about your age. I've never seen any comments personally about you being a woman, but you know, you've had it in the past, you've already shared, and I'm sure you still get it. Is there one particular thing that bugs you the most? Is there one particular type of troll that bugs you the most, or is it that they all kind of land in the same way with you?
Well, something that upsets me a bit is the fact that many of my trolls are women.
Okay.
So, really, and like, we should support each other, you know?
I had the same experience. I even made a post about it. It's like, anyway, sorry, I interrupt. Carry on.
No, it's fine. I actually, like, agree, because many of my trolls or like negative comments or internalized misogyny is from women. And this is something that upset me the most, probably, because we should support each other. We shouldn't start commenting on our looks. Like, we already have men who are super misogynist, but if we don't fight and if we don't work with each other to reach equality, that doesn't help.
Yeah. It's like they're making it harder to reach a place of equality, which is what we're all trying to reach anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And to be clear, like there's also some amazing, really supportive, beautiful women out there as well that have just been incredible on my journey. And I have come across creeps occasionally on, in the LinkedIn, but on the whole, I've got to give it credit. I'd say confidently 99.9% of men that ever message me, incredibly respectful, very nice people, and are genuinely interested in the work I do. And the same with women. But there is a small proportion of those people come out, and when they do, they're quite nasty with it as well. I think we've probably both received some mean comments like, "Come on, people, we need to stick together." So that is very interesting. Okay, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Any questions that I haven't asked you that you think it'd be really important that you want to share on this? And after that, obviously, make sure that people know how to contact you if they want to.
So yeah, I think something that is very important is actually like what we were discussing before, not rely too much on the stories that you are telling yourself. So especially when you want to start sharing something, speaking up can be really, really challenging. So there will be people that will not understand your vision. So my parents were even against me when I started posting. So I was spending too much time on social media, and I'm aware of it, so it's true. But I had like even family members who told me, why are you stop with that LinkedIn thing? But I believe it. Like I really knew that potential, and now I turned my side hustle into full-time job within a few months. So there will be always people try to put you down, but always remember why are you starting? Like why have you started in the first place? And don't rely on confidence, because confidence can go up and down, but this is not something that you can rely on. Okay. In terms of contacts, you can connect directly with me on LinkedIn or under my name, Debora Prossomariti. Okay. So write it down.
I will. I'll put it.
I will spell it.
I'll do some editing after the video, and I'll make sure that your name comes up, because people never be able to spell your name from the way it's pronounced, because I can't even spell it when it's in front of me. So anyway, carry on. Sorry, I interrupted.
Or my website that right now I'm rebranding, but I have my new website will be live soon, which is debbie.pro, which is easier to pronounce. So I use the pro as it's Prossomariti, but just pro, so it's
so much
more
easier.
Convenient for everyone.
And are you on any other social media sites besides what LinkedIn is? Is that your exclusive site? Are you on Facebook?
No, I do have Instagram as well. Facebook is just personal. I'm not sharing anything interesting there.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm very happy that you agreed to have this small interview with me today, because like I said, I do think many people will be watching this that are kind of on a similar journey to yourself, and I think you'd be very inspiring for them. And you've literally just exploded out of nowhere. Like I literally hadn't heard of you a year ago. Then it's like you're never off my feed. It's like once, twice a day, every day. And I've got to give you your dues. You do write very good content, especially since you write better English than I do, and I'm bloody English. So how you do it, I don't know. But anyway, impressive. Just quickly, actually, I've just remembered. You said that you spoke 5 languages. What are those 5 languages?
So I speak Italian, English, Spanish. So I've been living in Spain over the last few months. So I had to learn Spanish. And my flatmates are actually Mexican. So right now I'm learning Mexican, not even Spanish. I learn some Portuguese because I used to live in Portugal, and some French. Wow. I also used to speak German, but I completely forgot it. So I don't consider it in the combo.
I can remember some rude words in German that I'll spare this video for now, but that's about it. I consider myself fluent, put it that way. But anyway, it's been a pleasure. So thank you so much for your time, Debora. And if anybody wants to reach out to Debora who's watching this, by all means do so. And she's very good at what she does, and is obviously creates some very interesting content. So even if you don't want to work with Debora, certainly do engage with the content and follow her. And obviously, hopefully you get some clients from this as well. So thanks very much for your time, and I'll definitely see you on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Cheers.